Behind every undeniable brand are strategies most people never see. Until now. Each week, we're ripping open the playbooks of world-class innovators who've built massive communities from scratch. Real people, real results, real systems you can implement today. I'm Kendall LeJeune, and this is Tribe Tracks. Joining us on the show today is Bret Shuford. Hailing from Texas, Bret Shuford has been living deep in the heart of the acting world since he moved to New York City in 1999. A veteran of 8 Broadway shows, several feature films, network television, and web series, Shuford has sung, danced, and acted on stages and screens across the country. His best collaboration has been with ballet dancer, actor, and husband Stephen Hanna, and becoming a father to Maverick. He shares his joy for life on their account at Broadway Husbands and helps other content creators build a life and brand they love. Please welcome Bret Shuford. Bret, how's it going?
Hi, good. How you doing?
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you too.
How have things been?
I'm trying to hold on, my computer's situated.
Yeah, you're good.
It's been good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Living the dream?
How are you doing? Yeah, it's been a minute since we've seen each other.
It has been a while. I'm still following all your content, still checking out everything. Love to see it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm so sick of... Are you still in Texas?
Yeah, I'm in Austin. Still.
I'm so sick of the heat. I'm just like ready for it to not be so hot. Maybe it's hotter over here in Houston.
Yeah, definitely. I was in Houston a week ago, I think, and it was definitely considerably warmer than it was in
It just won't
Austin.
Stop.
Yeah, it's very fall here, which is fantastic.
Nice.
It is. So
I'm jealous.
I'm rubbing it in.
Congrats on this, the podcast and everything and what's going on. I was like so fascinated learning about what you're doing, and cool.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a journey. I first started, it all grew out of like the whole real estate thing that I was doing. And then once I ran with it a little bit longer than I originally wanted to. Real estate being the whole content creation around real estate, but there was a need. And so I just decided to do it, and it was good, and started doing that. And then I was like, I really think that I just really want to talk about brand. I want to talk about content creation. I want to do that. And so that's what this podcast is about. The other podcast, I have an Only Land Fans podcast. That's been, we just recorded our 85th episode. And we do that every week. We do it as a live virtual meetup. And so I grew a Facebook community around. It's like 7,900 people.
Oh my gosh.
We get people in and we just do these live interviews, and I just take that and create content from it. But I wanted to go in a different direction with that, and still doing that, still building up that brand, but wanted to focus on brand. And then I've got another project because I'm a glutton for punishment. I really wanted to chat with people about like how they create live performances. So I'm developing a podcast right now called The Effect Experience. And I will be interviewing people like Disney Imagineers that are doing like the live entertainment stuff for the fireworks shows and things like that. Different performers in different venues. I've got my marching band background. I've got a lot of I've got some TV producers on tap. So that's going to be like a passion project that I'm much, much more excited about, but we're moving in that direction. So
that's great. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. Catch me up. What's going on with you?
Oh man, it's been just such a crazy year because we were in New York last year. Steven was in a show and we were there for 7 months.
Wow. Moved the whole family up, baby and all.
We did. Yeah. We sublet like a 2-bedroom in Harlem and got to feel what that was like, because that was initially our idea, was we'd be in New York and doing that. But when we got there, I was like, yeah, no, I think this isn't for the birds. So we ended up coming back, I guess, a year ago.
Okay.
And then I ended up performing for Disney Cruise Line over the holidays. It was something that I had committed to before the pandemic even. And I was like, I'm going to go test this out and see how we like this. And it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
It's a good gig, but it became pretty evident. I did that. I did a show here in Houston at Tuts, and I was like, I think I'm good performing. I don't think I want to do it anymore. So I'm definitely like taking a break from performing and focusing solely on like Broadway Husband's content creation, which is doing great, and coaching. And I just got a book deal. I'm like writing 2 children's books.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love this.
Yeah, I know it's all just sort of happened in the last few months, and I had to get a literary agent, and I got a 2-book deal with Penguin Random House. It's like a big major publishing company, and
I love it.
Who would have thought?
I love it.
Yeah. So a lot of shifting happening, which is cool. And then we're moving to Orlando next summer. The plan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What's in Orlando? Is it just you want to be?
I got into grad school. I'm going to go to get my master's in themed experiences so I can become an Imagineer.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's the
plan.
plan.
Wow. Tell me more about this program. So first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
Because that's incredible.
Yeah.
Grad school is definitely a big step. So what is the program like? What kind of... Because I am fascinated about this.
Yeah, there's 2 programs. I learned about it when I was on the Disney cruise ship performing, and a friend of mine who worked in Imagineering went through this program. It's only 5 years old. It's through University of Florida's architecture school, so it's called City Lab, and it's only 18 months and reasonably priced for what it is. And he's the head of the program. It's like every single person who's gone through the program is fully employed. So they either work for Universal or Busch Gardens or Disney, or they're working, and some people are working for like immersive companies that do immersive museums and things like that. It's cool. It's really, you should look into it because I wish I knew about it sooner.
That's amazing.
I would probably have gone 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the plan? What do you hope, maybe not plan, but what is your vision for the kind of work that you'll be able to do with it? Do you have
my mind when I was applying, I was like, oh, I'll just get like a job in Imagineering, producing, helping create experiences and managing teams and being like a line producer, basically. Here's what I get to pitch my idea and hopefully get approved. And then I get to lead people through the vision. It can happen. Like Broadway Husbands has become something totally different. And then I just got this publishing deal. So to me right now, I'm going to go do it because I want my master's. I've wanted it for a long time with the hope that maybe get a job with benefits because that would be nice. Because all this freelance, I've only ever been freelance. So it would be nice to have that.
Especially with a family. I definitely
with a child. Yeah. And then also for us, Stephen, I think the thing we miss the most about New York is the people and the community. And we just haven't really found that creative community that we have here. And we have so many friends who work in the parks, and there's so much entertainment there that it feels like a good kind of lateral move financially and lifestyle wise. But also we would get like more of an artistic community.
Yeah, totally get that.
Yeah,
totally get that.
And I'm a Disney nerd. I can just go to the parks all the time.
Of course. Talk about a fringe benefit.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. I love that. And what is the school again?
The school's called City Lab. There's 2 schools that have it. So that one's one. And then that's University of Florida. And then there's another one that's like University of Central Florida has another program. That one I think is through like the theater program or something. This one's through the architecture.
Gotcha. That's amazing. Yeah. Have you seen the special on Hulu? I think it was like something about Epcot. I forget the exact title.
Like Epcot Becoming.
Yeah, Epcot
we just watched it like last night or night before last. Yeah.
So good. Yeah. So good. Did you like it?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah.
There's that scene where they are coordinating the music to the fireworks show. And they're talking about, in the band world, we call it like musicality. How do you blend the visual to the audio? So what you're hearing is also what you're seeing and vice versa. Coordinate those things. And when I heard that, I geeked out so hard because I was like, oh my gosh, that's the skill set that I have and that I judge these groups on and that I design with in mind, but it's in completely different terms and it's a different venue. And oh my God, I love this. I wish I would. So that's the impetus of, I want to dig in a little bit deeper to that kind of like how people do that and how they, because I think there are fundamentals to this skill set that we're talking about that exist in many different media. But it's just really interesting to learn about like the different vocabulary and like the different applications of what we're doing, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to talk about content today. We're going to talk about personal branding, and I'm super excited to dive into this with you. So for those who may not be familiar with who you are and what you do, can you give me a summary of what is it that you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Bret Shuford, and I help content creators make money doing what they love. I like to focus on the LGBTQ plus community and helping uplift those voices and helping give a lot of the people in that community permission to be as authentic as they can be online. And so what that means is like I work with people one-on-one, I work in groups, I do trainings, and it really is about helping people navigate the world of social media, match who they are in real life to their own digital presence. So there's no delineation. It's not like, to me, that's true authenticity, right? Authenticity for me is like the person I meet feels and feels like the same person I see online. And that's my goal when I work with clients, is to help them figure out how to translate that. And then the other part of that is helping people figure out how they can start to make money doing that. It's something that we've learned to do through my own account, Broadway Husbands. And so I use that kind of as a case study and a way to help other people see what's possible.
I love that. So much to unpack, because I think it's when we talk about content creation, social media, there are so many different things that go into that. So can you talk a little bit about what is your definition of the word personal brand, or the term personal brand?
Yeah, to me, a personal brand is really about finding your strength, like the thing that you're really good at, the thing you want to be known as. And this is why a lot of people need help, is because sometimes the thing that you're really good at, you're so close to it that you don't see it. And to me, what we want to do is find that thing, and then we want to exploit it in the benefit of others. We want it to be something that helps. We want to find a way to take that thing and be of use to the greater world.
That is so good. I love that explanation of the fact that oftentimes what we're great at, we're too close to see it. I think that's in every area of our lives, but wow, that's powerful. That one hit. That's really good. So how did you come into starting Broadway Husbands and getting all of the experience that you have that you now help other people with?
Great question. So I have always been a social media nerd. A lot of people of my generation, we just didn't grow up with it. But for some reason, I was always very intrigued from when MySpace existed to Friendster. I was always very much into it. And I remember a lot of people in my generation were like, no, don't go near it. And I was like obsessed. So I've always created content on Facebook. When YouTube started, I was creating stuff on YouTube. I've just always been very experimental, but without much commitment to it. And when Steven and I met, my husband, he was a ballet dancer with New York City Ballet, and I was on Broadway in Beauty and the Beast. We got married in 2011, and I was like, seeing this sort of vision of my life that I never thought possible come true. I grew up in Beaumont, Texas. I never thought like I'd get to be a full-time actor on Broadway. I wanted it, but I just didn't think it could actually exist. And then to marry this dreamboat of a man, and I was like, wow. And yet online, I just wasn't seeing that represented. I was seeing a lot of straight couples or even like gay couples that I saw online who just looked wealthy, like they just had money. I had no idea how they generated that money. And it seemed so unattainable. And it wasn't a life I wanted. I didn't want to live in the backwoods of some place. I was in New York City. I wanted to be on Broadway, and like somebody I was like just thinking, wow, if I really wanted this life when I was a kid, there's got to be a kid out there who would like to see that represented. And that was really the impetus. I was like, maybe I could create a similar account to what I'm seeing with these couples accounts, but it would be us sharing our lives on Broadway. And that started, and then we were, and I couldn't believe it. Nobody had the handle Broadway Husbands. I was like, I'm for sure this is gone. Nobody had it. So I got it. And then we decided to start growing our family. So we were documenting our journey through surrogacy. And that's really when it took off.
Wow. And how long have you had that account?
2018.
Wow. Okay. So can you talk a little bit about how your approach to content creation has evolved since you started that account in 2018 to now?
Yeah. First off, Reels and TikTok didn't exist, right? That was like, at the time, I think I did a lot of dub smashes. I loved dub smash.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lip sync. Come on. Why would you not?
That was my favorite thing. And so at the time, I think we were doing long form content on YouTube and sharing on Instagram, just photos, and constantly just taking great photos whenever we could. And then maybe doing some dub smashes to be silly. But it was very trying to just share more lifestyle, more inspirational stuff, and not a lot of storytelling, which I thought was interesting. When you really think about it, it took us a while to figure this out. But for us, when you talk about Broadway, like, you're talking about stories. And so when we really tell a story in our content is when it really performs well. And people really love, like, what now. So back then it was like images, but now we figured out, okay, people like this dichotomy of being an everyday person, being an everyday dad, or an everyday person who's just taking out their garbage. But you do it with a little pizzazz. You do it with a little Broadway. And
I love that.
Once we figured that out, people really like that, because not everybody can do that. If you have this really strong skill set as a performer, yet you live in the suburbs, what do you do with that? But also, there's a lot of people we've learned who did it at one point or were performers as kids, and they miss it. And there's a bit of, I could just take my garbage out and just do a dance. Like, why didn't I think of that? And thank you for the permission to express myself.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's huge. That's a big one. That's so cool. So when you first started the account, it sounds like you were just documenting, doing a little bit of like having fun with it, doing some dub smash stuff. When you create content now, is there a sort of an audience that you know that you're going after or that you're creating for? Or how does that play into, like, how does your audience play into your content creation process?
I love this question, because it's usually when I'm working with clients, it's the first thing we do is we talk about who their audience is. And for most people, they want to go into their insights and they want to look up demographics from their analytics and say, okay, Instagram says that my audience is 25 to 35 males. And I'm like, yes, but who do you want to serve? Because the more clear we are about who we want to speak to in our content, the easier it is to actually come up with ideas and just serve that person. And I think especially at the beginning, it's super important to have one person in mind, because that's how you find your voice. It's so much easier to talk to one person than it is to try to talk to 200,000. And a lot of people think that limits them in a way, like they're afraid to commit to that. But what I've learned is that it actually sharpens the message, so you have access to more people, because more people will respond. If you think about it, like the way I use as an analogy is like when you watch an amazing singer sing a song, they're usually singing it to someone, even if that person isn't there. They're usually picking someone. The more specific they are, the better. And still 2,000 people in the audience will be completely moved by that performance. So you have to think about it in that way, that like the more specific you are about who you serve. And so for us, like when we started, it was very specific. I wanted to serve a young 20-something boy who grew up in Texas and just moved to the big city, right? It's like a version of myself. Who didn't know this was possible. And every single day I make a piece of content to help him realize, okay, this is what I'm attaining for. This is why I want to do what I do. And it's interesting because I still feel like that's who we're thinking about. I'm constantly thinking about this young version of, it's not me, but it's like a version of myself. And when I think about that person in the content, okay, what would he laugh at today? What would he need based on what's happening in the world? And then ironically enough, when we look at our audience analytics and our insights, most of our audience is like 25 to 45 women. So
yeah, that's fascinating.
Right. So it's not necessarily, I always tell people like your customer, especially when I'm working with business clients, your customers are not your audience, but your customers are in your audience.
Oh, that's good.
So when you're serving your audience, that doesn't necessarily mean everything you make has to be a sales. Like you need to actually connect with people. And then those people will, and then you make invitations constantly about what it is. But the invitations are there for them to do with what they want, but they're there for you. They're there to follow you, not because of what you do.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. So when you are thinking about content creation and you are planning out your content creation, can you walk us through the process of, okay, look, I need to create content for the next month or so.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that? We've all seen so many different strategies, batching content, doing it by the week, doing it like having content pillars. But can you talk about your specific approach to content creation and how you plan that?
I am very organic. I don't use a lot of strategy. With Broadway husbands, we tend to be in the moment. Especially because we have a child, right? So we only get childcare 3 days a week right now. So those 3 days we have to be like, okay, what's our list of things to make? And let's just get them done. And we'll brainstorm ideas, after dinner or something, and then we'll just line up, okay, tomorrow we'll shoot this. And at some point I'll edit it and some point we'll get out and it's just, okay, we're going to, because it'll be like, get Maverick down for a nap. I can edit it and post it. That's where we are. But when we're working with brands, like we do have to constantly come up with concepts to pitch to them to get approval. A lot of times that's either a brainstorm between Steven and I or something I'll just kind of whip up and conceptualize. But we do tend to be more organic. And even for my own personal brand, I tend to be a little bit like, so my process is this. I consume content always with the idea of seeking inspiration. I don't really consume content for just entertainment anymore. When I'm consuming content, I'm thinking, is this something I could use? Is this relatable? Is this fun? If it makes me laugh, it might make my audience laugh. And then I save it. I'll save it for later. And then when I have those windows of time where I'm super inspired and energetic and I look good, I'll just go to that saved folder and I'll shoot as many things as I can. And then I have them batched and saved in my drafts. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. Like I might shoot it and then I'll be like, I don't really know how to use this. And then there will come a rainy day where I don't have anything to post and I'll find that thing and I will use it.
I love that. That's so good. So what would you say to someone who knows that they want to have a presence, that they want to help people, but they're not sure who they want to help? They're not sure what they need to put out. Maybe there's some fear around showing up. So how do you work through that? And what would be some advice that you could give that type of person?
Such a good question. Something I get the most compliments over is like, how are you always able to show up? And I think that part of it is, I think I just learned how to, when you're working in the theater, doing 8 shows a week, you just have to show up. There's Saturday mornings I woke up, I did not want to do a matinee. And yet it was my job to just show up, be on stage, sing, dance. And I think I learned like there's a bit of a work ethic around it. And for me, the thing that I like, and this always goes back to the audience for me, I think about who am I serving? And if I don't show up today online, that person is not receiving the message they need today. And when I think about how it feels when I'm having a tough day, or I sometimes just need that extra motivation, and if I wanted to go, I want to be that person for someone who they just go, I need motivation today. Oh, I want to go to Bret. Bret will have something for me. And if I don't show up for that person today, like, they're not going to have that waiting for them. And it's the same. That really came from theater too, where it's like when I would not want to do a matinee, I would have to literally think about the fact that there was probably an 8-year-old kid in the audience seeing their first Broadway show. And I would just do the show for them because it's just not about me. That's and that the more we can learn to like get over the idea that people are thinking, no one really cares that much on social media. They just don't. No one's consuming content for you. They're consuming it for themselves. So you have to create a space where they can see themselves through you.
That's good. That is really good. So Broadway Husbands is now, I think, at 216,000 followers. Can you talk a little bit about what was that journey like, starting it from 0 to what was that first milestone where you're like, I think we might have something here?
Starting from 0 was hard because I remember trying to get Steven on board was tricky. He's more introverted than me anyway, just in general. And I just had this clear vision of what it was, but it was hard for me to verbalize it. And I was like, I'm telling you, this could be huge. And he would be like, fine, I'll take a photo. But when what I remember is we were in, where were we? I think it was 2019, right before, like, I was able to get at the beginning a lot of gifted things. Like, we ended up getting, and this is what I tell people when they're content creating, like, you're probably not going to get paid at the beginning. You're going to get a lot of gifted things. And so we had movers give us like a free moving thing, which was probably like a $4,000 or $5,000 thing. And we didn't have to pay for it, which is great. We had won trips and hotel rooms and things like that. So we would go on those things and Steven's, this is cool, whatever. I think this is awesome. And he's whatever. And then I remember we got our first 5-figure brand deal with Buick, the car company, because we bought a Buick when we moved to Texas. And then I pitched ours to them in the DMs on Instagram, and they responded, and we negotiated a 5-figure brand deal. And when I got that contract, I showed it to Steven, and he was like, are we influencers now? And I was like, we have it, yes.
I love it. And what was the audience size that you had at that point? What was your follower count?
It wasn't huge. It wasn't what it is now. I would probably, I wish I could remember. I'd probably say we were maybe at 60 or 70,000.
Okay. Nice. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this question, Bret. When people are in the process of growing their accounts, there's so many different, like, you have to go do this and you have to, I think we all know now that like bots are bad. We don't want to do that. We don't want to pay for followers and things like that. But if you had to say that these 3 things will be the things that help to move the needle in your growth endeavors, what would those 3 things be?
Consistency, right? And I think people think consistency means I have to post every day. Yeah, the more you post, the more you grow. That's the truth. But consistency in messaging, consistency in style, consistency, it doesn't have to be the highest quality content as long as you're consistent in what it is that you're saying and how you represent yourself. I always tell people, like, you don't need to niche down because you are the niche. You just need to be specific about what you want people to know about you. It can't be everything. So that's where the pillars come in, right? Like, having pillars of content can really help narrow that down. Number 2, engagement. I think most people think they're engaging and they're not. And then they again complain that their engagement numbers are low. And I'm like, how much are you engaging? the golden rule I say is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And social media is like, if you want engagement, you're going to have to engage in other people's content, which means you need to like, you need to comment, you need to save, you need to share. And I would say focusing that specifically on people who have a similar style audience, like you want to get in front of their audience. So engage in their content. And the last thing I would say is put collaboration over competition. Most people, when they come from a business world or anywhere, they see other people who serve a similar audience as a competitor. And on social media, that just isn't true, because they're actually like, you have to see every single person as somebody you could potentially make a piece of content with. You have to understand, like, even if you serve a similar audience, you have a different frequency than them. So there's going to be people in their audience who are going to naturally want to gravitate to you because they didn't know you existed until they heard your voice. And so your voice is maybe the voice they needed all along, but they were just following that person because they didn't know that you existed. And that's why I think the more you can stop seeing people who are killing it, doing what you want to do, and as competitors, and the more you can see them as potential collaborators, the more you're going to start to grow and see yourself. You're going to unstick.
That's good. That's good. I'd love to drill down into each one of those now. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned pillars. Can you talk a little bit about what is your approach to defining content pillars? What are content pillars? If someone's listening to this and they're like, I have no clue what that is, can you talk about what this is?
Okay, so I'm a huge Disney nerd, and I like to use the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland because it's like this perfect analogy of building a personal brand. If you think about this, like Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, they were the very first ever immersive experience. Meaning, like, when you arrive, you are transported into a land that is not of this world, but inspired by this world. So you want to think about your brand as a similar thing, right? This is you're letting people be immersed in your experience. And when you get to Magic Kingdom, so the way I use this analogy is you can't get to the castle, which is like your dream, your vision of your life, your business. If you don't know what that is, you don't have a clear vision, there's no castle, right? So imagine Disneyland without a castle. It's weird. So you need to have a really clear vision about what you want your life to look like and what you want to build, so that everyone who gets immersed is bought into that vision. And then they can't get to the castle without walking down Main Street, which is Walt Disney's idealized version of his past, right? There's all the names on the glass of all the people who helped him get to where he is. You have to own your past. You have to own who you are, and you have to be willing to share your values and those things that matter to you, so that people have to know what you stand for. That's the biggest difference now, I think, with marketing now versus even 10 years ago, is people want to know what you stand for if they're going to give you their money. And with Walt, you walk down Main Street and you get his values: Americana, clean. There's all these people who helped him make this thing, right? You get the smell of of candy being made, whatever. So for you, what are the things that make you? And I usually tell people, your mess is your message. So what are the things that got you here? And then when you get to the end of Main Street, you're there at the hub. So this is how I talk about pillars. The hub was this patented design that Imagineers created in front of the castle. It's like spoken wheel design. And it's the center of the park, and all the lands sort of branch out from there. So if you think about yourself as the park itself, like Shuford Land, right? LeJeune Land, you want to pick 4 or 5 different places that people can branch off to, right? And the way I tell people to come up with this is, what are 4 to 5 subjects or categories of subjects that you could talk about for days? And if you're not sure, go to your best friends. What are the things that you hear me talk about incessantly? And just ask them, because they'll tell you. For me, I'm a total coffee nerd. I love personal development, social media, of course. One of the pillars should be what you do for a living. I have this huge theater background, right? And I put theater, Disney, storytelling under one pillar. And then what's my fifth? And then family. So now I talk a lot about being a dad, and I incorporate that into my messaging. When you have those 4 or 5, what I call them your hub pillars, because it's basically like your hub, what ends up happening is you're able to repeat these things that you're so passionate about over and over again in your content. And then you become known as that person, right? Anyone who knows me knows, oh, Bret, he's that guy who drinks too much coffee, loves Disney, was on Broadway, and is a social media coach. That in my content, repeat it constantly, right? To me, the pillars are really about narrowing down your passions and then being able to repurpose them on a recurring basis in your content.
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that. So when you're looking at your pillars and you are using them as content creation kind of guides, is that how you approach it? Do you say, okay, what are my pillars? And then what content can I create around those? Or how do you go about using that? Can you create content that's not part of that? Or
so it starts there, right? So like I can make content about anything. Like I can use any audio, any style thing, and then I can just think about one of my pillars, right? So what I try to tell people is you want to be able to recycle. Every 4th or 5th post should be that same category, because that's marketing, right? Like marketing is the rule of 7, right? It takes 7 times for people to start to understand. You also have to think that the fact that only 3% of your audience actually sees your posts when you make them. The more you repeat, the better. That gives people a better idea of what you stand for in your brand. So sometimes I can make a piece of content where I'm drinking coffee, wearing a Disney shirt, talking about social media while rocking my baby, right? And you get all the pillars in one post, but it stays within there. So sometimes I think people think, oh, I have to just make something about this one category. No, these all make up, and actually the better posts are the ones that incorporate as many of them as possible. But what you don't want to do is be like, I'm a homemaker, right? My pillars are like, sorry, Maverick's going down to bed and I think he's just fighting it. So if you hear a toddler crying in the background, that's what's going on.
Oh, you're good.
But you don't want to be somebody who's like, all of a sudden you've been posting about social media, Disney, coffee, theater, and then all of a sudden start talking about volleyball. This doesn't make any sense. Now I'm confused. What do you do?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good. There are different types of, or I'm not going to say types, but maybe purposes of content, right? So this is going to be like an educational piece of content. This is going to be an entertainment. This is going to be a sales piece of content. Can you talk about how that plays into your content creation process?
Yeah. I usually tell people your content should either educate, entertain, or inspire. You want to think about those 3 things. Sometimes they can do all 3. And so educational content is like what you'll see in like a carousel post, or someone who's like saying, here's 3 ways to do this, right? That is a great, especially for somebody who's like a coach who wants to be positioned as an expert. You want to be incorporating those things. Inspirational content is anything where it's so simple, right? I mean, you're seeing so much of this now where people do B-roll content. I did one today where you're just literally filming yourself and then putting trending music over it and just Googling a quote about something that you love and putting that in the overlay. And then entertainment, right? Entertainment is how you get the quickest growth. Right? If you want to grow your following the quickest, in my experience, it's getting people to feel something. They laugh, they cry, like that. Entertainment, understanding that is of value. I think you hear a lot of social media coaches talking about your content should have value. And then people translate that to, oh, I need to get people on my email list, or I need to get people downloading lead magnets. No, value can be feeling something. Value can be laughing and crying. And that's why people spend $400 to see Hamilton, right? And your content has value when it makes people feel something. So understanding that can be enough, but you want to have a variety. You want to have a variety of all of that.
Very good. And drilling down even more into the entertainment piece, what if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I don't feel like I'm a very entertaining type of person. I don't want to do talk dances on social media. What do you say to those people?
And the things that are the most entertaining, think about reality TV, think about HGTV. I know people who will sit and watch HGTV for hours. And those people, most of the time, it's very entertaining, right? But it's not scripted. They're just doing stuff and they're talking about it. Entertaining doesn't mean you have to sing or dance. What you do want to find is, how are you relatable? How can you make something that makes people, like I said, see themselves through you? And for most of us, this kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, is we're so close to it, sometimes we don't see it. But if you're a parent and you're growing a business, and there's a lot of people who are parents, I'm one of them, trying to grow a business, and you can make content about that, and that's relatable, and that's entertaining. And that helps me feel seen. And it gives me a moment of, oh, I'm not alone in this. And I think that don't just always assume that entertaining means you have to be an entertainer.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
So let's jump over to the engagement piece. I think a lot of people, myself included, at one point was like, okay, engaging. We've heard so many of the Gary V $80 strategy, where you go and you comment on people's stuff, and you're like, do you have some type of like rules of thumb for what's engagement, and how do you approach engagement? How do you make that consistent in what you do as a social media personality?
Yeah, engagement really is, I would say for me, one of the harder pieces, because it does require the most consistency. And like any habit, you have to put in some time to build it, and it should become a habit. So for me, it starts with scheduling it, because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Right. So I schedule 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening of just engagement time. And for me, that looks like opening up the app. I usually go straight to my DMs. I DM back anybody who's messaged me that day. Then I go into my comments. I comment back on every comment, as many comments as I can, depending on how viral the post is. And then new followers, I go in and I send a message to every new follower. And I say, thank you for following us. Like, let me know what you want to see from us. And then once I'm done with that, I then go into, I filter out I'm talking about Instagram mostly right now. I filter out my accounts and I go to my favorites. And so the favorites are accounts that are similar to our audience. And I've just favorited them. I've starred all those accounts. And so I will go through there and I will leave a comment on every single one of their new posts. And then once I'm done with that, I then just go to my regular feed and just consume for a little bit and leave comments and messages. That usually I can do that for about 20 minutes, and then I leave it alone. And then what happens is the next day in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll have new messages. What I've learned is that by liking every comment and commenting back on every comment, the algorithms love it. And even in stories, I'll go in my stories too, and I'll message people who've engaged in my stories, and I'll just say thanks for the engagement or whatever. So just that's the social part of social media that I think is harder for so many of us. But if you want to grow, that to me is like one of the biggest keys.
That is so good. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that part of your process. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah.
So I want to jump over to monetization. Can you talk a little bit about what is your business model right now? I know that you've got some social media coaching going on. I know that we've talked about some brand deal stuff. Can you talk about what does your business model look like as it relates to social media?
Yeah. So right now, my personal brand is primarily one-on-one coaching, and I have group coaching. So I'm trading my time for money. I always tell people building a personal brand is really about diversifying, and you want to have as many income streams as you can. And that to me is the quickest way. Like trading your time for money is the way to make the most money in the most amount of time because it comes directly to you. So coaching for me is like my primary recurring money. Sorry, you froze. You still there? You froze. Sorry, you still there? Okay. And the next thing we focus on are affiliates. So we do affiliate work with Amazon affiliates, LTK, and then directly with certain brands, depending on who they are. Those are fine. Like you can make some recurring money there, but I've learned like affiliates, the amount of like work that's required to get that affiliate income versus, especially for our account, because we are primarily an entertainment account. That's a harder one for us to make like a recurring money on. I've learned with people who only share content that is literally suggesting products, they can make a lot of money because that's what they're known for, but that's not us. So I honestly think that if I was 20 years old right now and didn't really have the presence I have, I would probably create a brand new TikTok account. This is free advice for anybody listening. Brand new TikTok account that's not my name, just some sort of made up name. And I would go on TikTok shop every night and I would just go live for 2 hours and I would just sell. You can make so much money.
Wow.
Affiliates are good in that, especially if you're doing long form content, if you're doing YouTube or like a podcast, having those affiliate links embedded in your show notes and stuff is great. But the brand deals for us have become really our primary revenue stream because of the size of our audience now, and because people really like the sensibility and our sense of humor in our content. And then we also get to be representative, right? We get to represent queer families, which I think is super important. So with that, I go directly and pitch them in DMs, or I email their marketing teams. And then a lot of times now we get people just emailing us directly saying, hey, we have a campaign. Would you want to work together? And about a year and a half ago, we brought on a manager to help us negotiate a lot of that because I was drowning. Like changing diapers and doing bottles and stuff. I just couldn't. When I started this account, I remember this. When we started the account in 2018, I remember saying out loud to Steven, I just want a year's worth of free diapers and a year's worth of formula whenever our child is born. And we did it.
You manifested it. I love it. I love that.
And then when that year was up, I was like, I don't know what to do with this account now because that's all I ever wanted to do.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I would say is our next step, I think, is really about creating almost like a membership and a community. That's something I really would like to focus on in the new year. So we want to do a podcast. And it's for parents. We want to bring a community of parents together, and it's about being inclusive. There's just a lot of, unfortunately, in the family space, it's a very conservative space. And so we want to create a space where all parents feel included.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. Now, you mentioned that you have a manager that kind of helps with the brand deals. Do you have any other team members that helps you when it comes to editing, content creation, growing social media, any of those things?
It's so funny you asked that. We have not. We hired a YouTube editor 3 months ago, and that was like for us scary. She's great, but I was just like, oh God, I have to pay somebody now. But ironically enough, today I onboarded a new VA because I just, again, was learning, okay, I can't do all of this. Our growth is stumped because I'm not able to maximize my time. And I'm doing little administrative things that I really shouldn't. My time and my creativity is like better used doing other things. So yeah, I just onboarded a VA, a virtual assistant.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
It's huge. It's a life changer. Listen, I'm telling you, like, I've had
Your
virtual
team is
assistants.
amazing. Your team is amazing.
Look, I am nothing without my team. Like, they are just remarkable. And I've had a virtual assistant team probably, gosh, through different iterations of my business, through real estate and everything, probably 10 or 11 years.
Wow.
And that is the one thing that I will say to anyone that will listen: get a virtual assistant. Even if you don't have a business, even if you don't have social media, like, you can get them to help you with your regular everyday life so much. And you pair that with AI now, and you're golden. It's a life changer. So anyway, I'm so excited that you were able to do that.
Yeah. And I think I am going to bring somebody on, not necessarily a social media manager, but someone to help me manage the engagement stuff, because that is the most time consuming part.
Totally.
And yet the most valuable.
That's so good. So let me ask you this question. If someone's listening to this, they've done a good amount of kind of building out like a brand around their business. Maybe they want to start opening up to more. So it's not just like a business account, but it's a more like personal brand, right? Mm-hmm. Talking more about those personal content pillars, but they're stuck. They're stuck at a certain amount of followers. Maybe it's 9,000 followers. And no matter what they do, they gain some, they lose some, they gain some, they lose some. So they're stuck at that number. What kind of troubleshooting advice could you give to them?
I would probably have them first, depending on the size of the amount of followers, go to your followers, talk to them, engage, have conversations with your followers, because there's a reason they follow you. They're waiting to hear from you. And if you're not DMing them, if you're not using on Instagram broadcast channels, if you're not using those things where you give them closer access to you, start doing that, because they'll tell you. Ask them, what do you want to see more of? Why do you follow me? Have those conversations, because there's a reason they follow you, and you need to get really clear on what that is. The second thing I would say is, going back to what I said about collaboration, you need to start reaching out to people who are serving a similar audience and find ways to collaborate with them. It might feel weird for a lot of people to do that, but I'm telling you, if someone is a content creator and they're posting content every single day, they need ideas. They need help. They need someone to come to them and say, hey, maybe I can help you cover 2 or 3 of your posts so you don't have to worry about it. And you get to now introduce yourself to their audience. You get to learn more from someone else who's succeeding in this area. So I always say, network out, start to meet people who have a similar size audience or greater, and find ways to collaborate, pitch. And no, not everybody's going to respond, because some people don't have that mentality. Some people do put competition first. And that to me is sad, because it's such a wasted opportunity, but that's how some people are.
Yeah.
But collaborating on social media for us is huge. Whenever we do a collaboration with somebody, we inevitably gain tons of followers. And I think the algorithms like it too, because it also reinforces this idea of social. It is a social platform. You're meeting people in real life. You're not just seeing their content. Those would probably be the 2 ways I would unlock that for them. And also mix up your content. Just the third thing I would say is, if you've thought about making something and you just haven't made it because it feels like too big of a production or whatever, now's the time to make it.
Do it. Pull the trigger.
Up level.
Yeah, that's so good. And we hear a lot about that term collaborate, collaboration, collab, that kind of stuff in the social media space. But if someone has never thought about that, has never thought about what is collaborating, what would that even look like? Can you give us some ideas in terms of what might that even look like if I just have a personal brand and maybe I'm not even selling anything, I'm just trying to grow? What does that look like?
Even if you just have a personal brand, you do want to be clear about who it is you serve and how you serve them. So if you're I really want to help dads, or I really want to help moms, or I really want to help content creators, social media influencers, whatever, then you want to think about, okay, who are the people I follow that do that? Because we all do, right? We all tend to follow people who are doing what it is we want to do. So collaboration would simply be a DM to that person and saying, I love your content, right? Making it about them, not about you. And saying, I love your content and I would love to collaborate with you. I have some ideas. What if we did, I have some ideas. I wouldn't even pitch them in the first reach out. I would just say, is there a chance you'd be open to doing something? And then letting them respond and having a Zoom call. And then for us, it tends to either be a Zoom call or a phone call. We say, here's 3 ideas I had. What do you think? And then we'll sometimes brainstorm together. Like, what if we did this? What if we did that? Us, the easy ones are the dance ones, because we can literally be like, do you like this trending dance? Do you like this trending dance? Because we'll learn it on our own. And then when we meet up, we just shoot it. But for sketches and comedy things, you don't even need to be in the same room, right? I've done collaborations with people I've never met in person, and yet we're in the same car together. It's being able to be of service to that person, but while also expanding your growth. And so I would say, no matter what size you're on, is if there's somebody you like, and there's somebody's content that you respond to and you think it's funny or emotional, reach out to them. They could simply say no. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen. But at least they know who you are and they're more likely to follow you. And you're going to learn more about where your vision could go by doing that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So what are some of the common mistakes and missteps that you see people making with social media? And you mentioned that you coach people. So what are some of those common errors that you see people making? Like, if you had to say, okay, most people are going wrong in these 3 areas, what would they be?
They're not picking one platform. I would say that's probably the first thing. Like, you want to dominate one platform, not dabble in a bunch. So pick one platform. I always tell people, it's like each platform is like learning your own language. You want to be fluent in one language before you try to learn another one. You can't learn Mandarin and Italian at the same time. Yeah, it's just too much. So I see people trying to do too many things there, right? Number 2, they make the content too much about themselves, right? It becomes like almost a brag show, and it's not on purpose. It's just that they haven't really figured out like who they're speaking to. So they're just like showing off, and it loses the opportunity to connect. And then this goes back to what I was saying too. I think the third thing I see people most commonly do is like post and ghost, right? Like, they make a post and then they close the app and they don't engage and they don't talk to anybody. And the next day they just make another post and then they close the app. Like,
wait, so I have to use social media the way that social media was intended to be social in order to grow. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. We've got some dots are connecting here. I love that. That's really good. Now, you've mentioned multiple times in our conversation today the importance of serving a particular audience member that you have in mind. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, I have no idea who I want to serve, how do you go about guiding people to figure out who is that person?
I said it earlier, but I think it bears repeating. Is think of a version of yourself 5 years ago, right? Or 10 years ago, even. I think I learned that from, I don't know if anyone follows Chalene Johnson. I learned that originally from Chalene Johnson. But the idea is that you know where that person is, right? Chances are pretty good that where you're at in your life is not where you thought you'd be 5 years ago. So your content can really reflect like what it is about your life now that you wanted then. And so that's such a great place to start. I usually try to tell people, don't make it yourself, because then it's a little too personal, like a little too like direct. So create a version of yourself. The other thing I tell people is, if you have an ideal customer or client that you've worked with, depending on what you do, if you want to focus on your business, think about that person. Like, how did you help them? What were the things they were saying to you? What were the problems they presented? How did you get them there? That's a great way. And sometimes you could take that version of you and that person and make them one.
Yeah, I like that. Very cool. And can you, like, you guys have had Broadway Husbands since 2018, so it's been a minute. Have you evolved that audience member, or have you added other like avatars
Yeah,
to what you do?
definitely. Like, I think now I don't focus so much on young gay male. It's this last year we realized it just shifted. Like, somehow we had a couple things. This is what will happen, right? You will keep posting if you post consistently, and something will go viral. Probably multiple things. And for us, we had some things go viral, and we were like, and all of a sudden we're bringing, like, you get a taste of what that audience is based off of what that content was. And we had stuff go viral around parenting, and we were like, this feels wrong. This doesn't feel sustainable for us, because it would require us to almost exploit our child, and I didn't feel comfortable doing that. There's clearly some people online who do feel comfortable doing that, but we did not. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is the end of this account. But we kept experimenting and trying different things. And then we had had a couple reels go viral over the summer. And we were like, oh, all of a sudden our audience changed. And we were like, people were leaving comments saying, this brings me so much joy. And then we would get things like, I wish you were my neighbor. Those are probably the two things we get the most. And it was like, light bulb went off. Got it. Our account is about joy. So if it doesn't spark joy, we're not going to post it. Then I realized that the dancing this is where we are now. Is a majority of our audience are women. I would say 70% of our audience is women, and they're like early 30s to mid 40s. So that tells me they're most likely moms. So I tell Stephen, the way we think about it is, these are the girls that we took dance class with in middle school and high school who like went off, got married, had kids, and now just want to be back like dancing with their gay friends in class.
Yeah, I love it.
So we get to be like their friends from middle school and high school that they never got to hang out with as adults.
That's so good. That's so good. I love that. I love that approach to it too. And what a great lesson though, when you mentioned about, I don't know if this, or I do know, this is not what I want this account to be about.
Yeah.
I think that's just as important as knowing what you do want your account to be about. That's really awesome.
True.
I love that. I love that. So what would you consider to be your definition of success?
I define success as the actions that I take. So if every day I'm taking action towards the vision of who I want to be, I'm successful today. And I think too many of us are stuck in the results. We think that I need to have a certain amount of followers or a certain amount of money to be successful, but like, you can't build on success you don't acknowledge. And every single day, there's tiny successes that we need to acknowledge so that we can continue to build on them. There's too many variables, right? I can't decide. I can't determine if I'm going to get new followers or get canceled tomorrow. But today, like, I stayed sober, and my kid is alive still, and I fed him, and I ate and drank some water. Like, it's a good day. It's a really good day.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think is your superpower?
That's a great question. Oh, man. I really think my superpower is... That's so hard for me to answer. Why is that hard for me to answer? I think I said this earlier too, so I hate to repeat myself, but like, showing up. I feel like I'm really just good at showing up, even when I'm scared, even when I'm not prepared, even when I don't want to be there, but I know I show up anyway. And I do that for my family and my friends, and I do that online. That's like my superpower. And I constantly just try to help people overcome their fear so they can show up too.
I love that. I love that. And that's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Because there's so many good reasons not to show up sometimes, right?
So that's powerful.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask, what is your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
All I think about, probably the thing I think about the most now, is raising an emotionally healthy child. That's all I think about. I just every day want to help him be so self-secure and self-reliant and just be able to trust himself and stand up for himself and not really rely on outside things for his self-esteem. Because so many of us, I think, at least I can speak for myself, like I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And so I think I'll know, I can already tell he's like very independent and he's an independent thinker. But I know like no one's a perfect parent, and I'm saving up for his therapy regardless. But I want him to be able to talk about his feelings with no shame and no fear. I want him to be able to talk to me about all of it. And that's like my biggest goal. Everything else outside of that is just like, how do I make him feel more secure? Make my family feel more secure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. What a gift. What a gift. Wow. Bret, I want to thank you so much for sharing so much of your knowledge and your experience with us today. How can we give back to you? What connections, what resources are you looking for right now?
Oh, thanks for asking. I want to speak. I want to be speaking on stages. So if anyone's hosting events and needs speakers from all the way from social media training to just inspirational, motivational stuff, I'd love to come and inspire your audience.
I love it. I love it. And if someone wants to reach out to you about coaching or any of the services that you provide, how can they reach out to you?
I'm on Instagram. And you can find me on my website, bretshuford.com. I also have some great free resources if anybody wants them. You can go to bretshuford.com. It's all there, including I have a 365 days of prompts to help you with your content. I have a whole guide on how to monetize your social media, and it's all free. So go check it out.
Awesome. Love that. We'll definitely put all of that in the show notes for sure. Thank you for being such a giver, but thank you for sharing. This has just been really fantastic, and I'm so glad we got to catch up. And this has been awesome. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, my friend. You are just a pleasure, and I love seeing what you're doing. And I want to work with you. I've got some projects. Gosh, it sounds like with this Imagineering thing or the master's thing that you're doing, I think that's gonna be huge. And I'd love to have you on my other podcast.
Yeah, when that comes, let me know.
That would be amazing. I would love to chat with you about all of that stuff and geek out on all of that. And cool. I just love this. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time out today to do that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anything for you. I think you're awesome.
I so appreciate that. I think the world of you as well. All right. Enjoy the week, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. All
right, my friend. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey there, brand fan. If these insider strategies on building influence and cultivating real community got your wheels turning, like and subscribe for more conversations that cut through the noise and get to what really works. And if you're ready to turn these insights into action, head over to onlybrandfans.com to unlock the next level. Until next time, build something they can't ignore.